Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here. Welcome to my series on how to play Vainglory 5v5. Episode 2, I will link episode 1 in the description and I'll also put a card in the video. I played Fortress in that particular episode. We're going to be playing Lance, who is a very, very good captain if you can play Lance on this current update. He's one of those heroes that you really need to be able to play to make the best use out of him. Now, for full clarity, I was in a 3-man queue with I'm the Doom and a guy called Kale. Both of them are very good EU players, and I'm the Doom known as one of the best players in the world. So just for clarity, I wasn't solo queuing this was a 3-man queue. This is high elo Vainglory on the EU server as well. So to start off with, you can see I basically saw this Saw getting chased out, and they kind of really heavily overextended at this point in time. Now I'm waiting for my Impale to come back up. We have chased them down. I'm going to be just pushing Tony out the way, knowing that Ringo's pretty much dead, and then going to save my Impale to put pressure on Catherine. They'll have been rotating up to deal with this, but realistically, we haven't taken much damage, we haven't burnt any flasks, and as long as we kite backwards and trying to split the aggro, this is what you can see here. I used my boots to get in front of Dynord, that's I'm the Doom, just to try and block the Samuel. I tried to block the Samuel Malice and Verdicts, but also it splits the aggro, so if he gets behind me, it's a lot harder for Samuel to get pressure onto him without coming through me, and obviously we want that situation to be me taking the damage on, not him. So in these kind of situations, you rotate in who's at the front, making it harder to get to your damaged allies at the back, and if you're healthy and have your flask up like me, you can take a couple more hits. So that's a little way to play them, micromanage these fights in the early game. You'll notice that we split between myself, Idris, and Blackfeather quite a lot in that little engage, and what I'm doing now is simply putting pressure on this weapon power buff. I can see that they are doing it. I got a deep ward down in that little brush between the gold toad and the weapon power buff. That's really important ward, or a scout cam. If you can get that scout cam there, you can get a lot of information about where the enemy jungler is and whether there's any rotations going between the lanes. So that's a really, really important place to be able to have your scout cam. I didn't go for the weapon power buff because I knew that I'd get killed. I didn't have my flask, but just the presence of us being there was enough to force them into a defensive maneuver. Saw got to push the top lane because Ringo was sat helping the Tony out, and I went down to in the mid lane to try and put pressure on Samuel. And luckily I got forced out of lane but didn't die, so that was a benefit. So what I want to be doing now is just scanning between every lanes. The first back that I've made, I want to make a very important decision about where to go straight from base. And you can do this as any laner or any jungler or any captain. Scan the map to see where your sort of presence would be best placed. I can see now that the Tony's doing this healing Treon. I don't get it, but he's very low. This is going to force their jungler out of action for a little bit. I also forced him to use his boots, which means that Saw's going to have a bit more free time in this lane. So I saw that there was a lot of pressure on the enemy top side, and I needed to go up there to help relieve that pressure, because again, giving a lot of support to a Saw is going to allow him to perform his role best, which is just pushing that lane without hindrance. Now I can see Tony hanging around. I'm just going to sit here for the time being to make sure that I'm giving Saw equal manpower. I'm either going to draw someone up here to force it into a 2 versus 3, or I'm going to be in a situation where they are too scared to go in because they're taking a lot of damage, burnt their flasks, burnt their boots, and I'm just there providing support for Saw. That's what's called lane pressure. That is what's called creating pressure. I was creating pressure specifically for the Saw just by being there. And that pressure either drew enemies to my lane, or it meant that Saw was able to sort of survive what could have been a tumultuous situation. So just by creating pressure in that top lane, I'm allowing Saw to do his job. So I was there for the time being until I thought it was safe to back off, and once Saw had pushed it to turret, I thought, right, let's start getting some roaming on. Head towards the mid lane. Nothing crazy happened there. Didn't really get much work done. But what I was trying to do was trying to help relieve pressure on the Blackfeather in the mid lane, which is I'm the Doom. I saw Catherine there. I knew that I had to go down. I didn't want to make it an easy kill for them. So by going down, it creates another 2v2 scenario, and they are less likely to want to engage, meaning I'm releasing pressure on the Blackfeather. It's all about putting yourself in the map in areas that create pressure. So I think one of the main things that I want to get through with this game specifically is about how you play the map. As a jungler, as a captain, even as a laner, you can do this too. A lot of it is about scanning that minimap consistently, looking at what hero portraits appear where, and knowing where you need to be to help alleviate what's going on, or create a situation to get an advantage. What I do a lot in Vainglory 5v5 is I like to get really heavy into the enemy jungle. I like to light it up with scout cams so that my allies can see the enemy jungle farming. And then I like to sort of move between the lanes quite heavily. As a captain, I am a firm believer in 5v5 that you should constantly rotate between the lanes. Now, it does sacrifice a little bit of experience, but you're looking to help set up every single one of your lanes. A captain that sits with a carry in a single lane is doing his team a disservice, unless specifically that carry that you're babysitting is going to carry the game solo. I am a firm believer that you rotate the map consistently, so that's why I scan the map all over the place. I've seen Tony on the top side. I'm now heading to the top side to help create another 2v2 scenario. And you can see here, with Saw being in the vicinity, Blackfeather rotates up, we get a double impale, wham bam, thank you ma'am. That's an easy double kill, because I rotated up, because I saw Tony was there due to the vision control that we had. And now we're in a situation where pings are going down for Saw to do the turret. I can see Samuel rotating up. Now, I could do one of two things here. I could go into my lane with the Saw and help him take the turret, or I could just zone the Samuel off. Like, Samuel's now losing experience, and we have I'm the Doom now essentially getting onto him with the Blackfeather. We land the Impale, we get the Githian Wall, and then we get another kill. And all in the meantime, Saw has been able to push his lane up anyway. So we didn't get the turret, but realistically we did a couple of other things. We denied Samuel a whole load of experience in gold, and we allowed Saw to have that pressure on the turret by himself. Unfortunately, I got chased down by Tony and Ringo here, though I do manage to essentially escape by using my Githian Wall when Tony's about to use his last punch. So Tony was about to gap close on me with his last punch, and I used the Githian Wall to knock him into the wall, and that forced him back because he knew that he didn't have any gap closes on me there. We didn't get the turret, but what we did do is we had a lot of pressure bot lane. Now, I haven't actually been bot lane much at all this game, but that's because I can see the Batiste is constantly sitting on that bot side of the map. So what you should really do in tandem with your jungler is both of you should act like junglers. Both of you should be trying to impact lanes left, right, and center. And off the back of that play at top lane, because we killed Samuel, we actually ended up getting the turret in mid lane, and I'm the Doom gets another kill. So that was a really good situation set up, because we rotated top, we created pressure there, we drew enemies to the top lane, and then we rotated back and took that mid lane turret because Samuel was dead. So we actually created a really, really great situation here, and it's resulted in a massive amount of map presence for us. And now the enemy's kind of tilted. They're all like in the middle of nowhere. If I had Githian Wall there, I would have Githian Walled Varia, but unfortunately I didn't. I do manage to land the Impale, but I don't really think we have enough to follow up on it like completely. And actually with that great stun from Catherine, Varia gets out. So at this point we're just kind of overextending a little bit. We don't really need to be here, and that's why I'm just kind of warding my team backwards, you know, to try and back them off. So we actually got a really good series of events that led to pretty much a global advantage in our favor at this point. Now I'm going to work towards a Crucible because I have the Fountain that's been really helpful in skirmishes, and by the way, I am kind of leaning towards the fact that Fountain in most situations is still one of the better items to pick up first, but I'm going towards the Crucible now because obviously the Catherine stun I want to be able to block. I want to be able to block Oblivion, or maybe even the Tony ultimate if I need to. So there's lots of things that I want to be able to block this game, and having the Crucible will allow me to do that. Now we're going to go and do what we call sieging a turret. Now there's 3 of us, 3 melee, so it's a little bit harder, but there's only one person defending this turret right now, and it's the Samuel, who isn't really that fed at this point in time. So even though Ringo appears, he's only got a spell sword. We're pretty tanky at this point, and we get the turret, and then we get the Ordained onto Ringo, a pretty easy cleanup for us all. Now, this is really a massive sort of win more moment for us. You can see we escaped the Samuel Oblivion with the use of Doom's ultimate, and then using the Fountain at just the right time, I managed to get Batiste into a really healthy position. He was sustaining quite heavily from his heroic perk anyway, and off the back of this, we end up getting a huge amount of kills. I Githian Wall Samuel back to make it easier for Doom to kill, and then I get the Impale onto Catherine. That is 3 kills and a turret for us. Now, really important note here, guys, is you need to know when to back off. Right, they have got fairly short death timers. 3 members of the enemy are still alive. I'm not even level 6 yet. I don't have my flask up. I don't have my fountain up. This would be overextending if we stayed and tried to get the armory turret, which is the one that we were about to take in the mid lane. So this is a really sensible move for us to just back off. I can get some more items. I can regen using the passive from my fountain, and I can then just start to reassess the map. Now I can see Saw is in the top lane. He's kind of been there most of the game. I can see Idris is coming down towards the bot lane. I almost landed the Impale on Varia because I was essentially trying to set up a kill onto Varia. If I killed Varia here, then we have enough pressure with this minion wave to push onto this second tier turret and get it off the map. That opens up more of that top side of the map, or the bottom side of the map for us in terms of the jungle. We just need to be careful because I can't see any of their team. So I don't want to overextend here because Samuel's appeared, and if the rest of the team turns up and collapses on us, then it's going to be a 5 versus 3, and no matter how far ahead we are, that's not a great situation to be in. So I'm going to take this opportunity to just kind of back off, hoping to get that healing trio, but unfortunately Cal took it. Now they've kind of lined up for me. We're going to start to go in. I actually take a lot of damage here. I have to use the fountain to save my life at the last moment, but luckily my team absolutely destroys them. Now we have a huge amount of pressure on the map here with a minion wave pushing in top, or rather in mid. I overextend at this point. Like, the sensible thing to do in this situation, I was essentially trying to help Doom get his pentakill, which he did. The guy got a bloody pentakill on CP Blackfeather. That was amazing. That was one of the highlights of the game. That was worth it for the pentakill, but if I didn't have the opportunity to get the pentakill over to Doom, then we should have rotated mid with that minion wave. I had a minion candy in my inventory. We could have pushed that minion wave in with that minion candy and got the armory turret and probably the armory, which would have been a better map play overall. Even though the enemy was respawning, probably would have enough time to do that. But getting the penta, absolutely worth it for Doom, because obviously you don't get pentas that often. And you can, looking at the rest of the builds, I think Doom's got a very sensible build, a very burst heavy build with the Aftershock Blackfeather. It's really good against melee heroes, it's very good at shredding Tony, but also if you can dive to the backline, you're going to be bursting those enemy squishy carries very heavily too. So we haven't really considered things like Ghostclaw and Blackwing yet, or at least we haven't done much with them. Blacklaw hasn't even spawned at this point in time, but I don't think we're going to end up needing him. The main pain points that I'm looking at right now is that we have to do something with this top lane. Sora's kind of been there the entire time, so I kind of want to get Sora into a position where he's going to be able to push that second tier turret down. I know that there's a huge amount of stuff going down on the bottom side of the map. You can see it right now with the double kill that they picked up. But this means that there's no point me going down bot lane now. I've just seen Tony and Ringo appear in the top near Sor, so I'm immediately making a rotate over there with my fountain and with my crucible to allow him to survive. The Hellfire Brew comes out, I'm just going to use the fountain to save his life, and that's essentially all that I needed to do from this situation. We're going to keep them here for as long as possible because Blackfeather and Batiste are roaming up at this point. I just cleared vision in the enemy weapon power side jungle, which means they don't know Batiste is coming. They walk straight into him. Obviously, my Batiste is really fed. I get that really good combo of the Impale into the Ordained, and this is just because of a couple of series of events that I set up. I cleared some vision in the enemy jungle, so we had the free ability to roam between mid lane and top lane. I made a good rotate up to save the Saw. Saw was low, so they felt that they could stick around. They then went into their weapon power side jungle because their weapon power buff was up, and because I'd cleared vision there, they were not expecting the Batiste to be there, and we collapsed in on that. We don't even end up getting the armory because they end up surrendering before we get there, but this was just a pure domination game, and a lot of it came from the ability to roam between the lanes quite considerably. That was a really important part of this game. So you can see, I'm going to have a look over the builds now. Obviously, upvote everybody because it was a game that no one trolled, everything was going fine. But yeah, I think it was especially a tough game for the enemy team. I really think that early invade where Tony kind of overextended with Ringo into the lane because they were greeding for that kill on Saw kind of put them very, very far behind. But let's take a look at the builds. Pretty standard from I'm the Doom. He went into the Shatterglass because he was just snowballing like crazy, but the Aftershock Broken Myth, that's a pretty old school standard CP Blackfeather build. You can have a look at Kel. He went for Poison Shift Breaking Point. Again, really standard because it's a high sustain build with the Batiste, and you rely on the Breaking Point stacks to get yourself into a really strong position to fight. Saw only had a Sorrow Blade somehow, went into then some armor. Not really sure, he was going for a Serpent's Mask afterwards. It's not the kind of build that I personally would go for, but I do understand it. It's a very heavy, sort of straight up damage build. I like to go either Sorrow Blade or Serpent's Mask. I never like to really build the two of them because they kind of do the same thing, but one just provides you with a bit of sustain and less damage. But realistically, it didn't really matter what he was building. He just kind of pushed the lane his entire game. You can see the Idris went for the Dragon's Eye into the Alternating Current. Now, the problem with Dragon's Eye is you do need an extra crystal bit to unlock your heroic perk, which you can see that he's got there. And then the Alternating Current is a pretty standard second item. So if you want to unlock your heroic perk as early as possible with Idris, with Dragon's Eye specifically, you need Dragon's Eye plus a crystal bit, and that gets you your fully unlocked heroic perk. But Dragon's Eye is such a key item for Idris that I think it's core, and it's obviously very easy to stack. And I went for Fountain, Crucible, and I was going to go towards War Treads. That's kind of my absolute blanket build for captains on 5v5. Like, most times you're going to need a Crucible. Fountain's still really good, and War Treads is a really important item as well, especially in 5v5. So that is just like, if you're ever struggling what to build as a captain and you don't know what to build, I always go for that. And obviously I always mix in some armor if I need it, especially if I'm the front line. I'll tell you a little bit about the enemy builds. I think the Varia build is obviously pretty standard, alternating current first, but she just wasn't really getting far ahead. Not sure about Tony. He looked like he was also going towards the Sorrowblade Serpent's Mask. I think it can work, especially, you know, hit people really hard, but I do like to, again, one or the other for me. Stormcrown on Catherine first before she gets any other items is just not a good idea, guys. Unless you're snowballing like crazy, do not do this. It really puts your team in an awkward position, especially when you're behind. Like, it's just really tough as a team to look at your captain with just a Stormcrown and say, well, you're not doing anything for the team. So yeah, and she didn't finish the Fountain either. She went for some armor instead. Like, the Fountain would have been so key to a lot of these team fights, and she didn't have it. Samuel, the Dragon's Eye build, pretty standard. He looked like he was going towards an Eve of Harvest or something next. And Ringo, going for the Spell Sword into what I assume was going to be a couple of Tyrant's Monocle builds, which is, again, an okay build for the Ringo to go. It's pretty old school. Just a couple of updates ago, that was a really popular build. So, yeah, those are all the builds, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you learned a little bit about how I approach my 5v5 games and how I sort of roam across the map and try and make plays happen. I'm going to keep doing these series, really talking about different things on every single episode and trying to play different heroes and different roles. I might play a jungle one this week as well, maybe play a couple of laning ones as well. So thank you very much for tuning in, guys. I'll see you soon.